and we bring in our buddy Niko Moreno, and we break that down with him in addition to the playoffs that we have here in Major League Soccer. We have 5 on the floor, 1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. We'll talk to Niko about one of those matchups. We'll probably go through all 5 in particular, but we bring him in from Seattle. He's wearing the lid. He's ready to go. And obviously, half hour ago, the news broke. Tata Martino returns to Atlanta United under contract for the 27 season. So it is a 2-year deal, and Tata Martino returns for Atlanta United to be on the touchline for a team that's going to have a lot of decisions it's got to make this season. What does Tata and Chris Henderson want the roster to look like? That's where the rubber hits the road. Business is about to pick up here in Atlanta. Tata Martino returns as manager.
First of all, good morning, John, SDH family. Excited, happy for the fan base to get back the man who made it all happen, who started the whole thing, who, in my opinion, did leave a curse behind once he was let go, but maybe he is the key to just breaking that, and this team can get back to the winning ways. But yeah, this is something that we've been following around. Unfortunately, I've been behind the 8 ball the entire time, but the reality, and after talking to several GMs across the league, it is a manager that had a lot of interest from a lot of clubs, and he clearly has a relationship with the city, with the club. He has a relationship with Chris Henderson that goes all the way back to Miami. That was a very good working relationship, as far as I've been able to tell, as much as I've been able to hear from several sources, that there was a lot of respect between Chris Henderson and Tata Martino. Unfortunately, Miami turned into something else once certain additions were made to that club. And so I do believe that this is a formula for success. There is nothing about this hire that I dislike. I think that Tata Martino is the right guy to unlock what you might have left out of a guy like Almiron. I feel like he has the ability to use and maximize the strength of a Lat. I think that when you look at this roster and some of the pieces that still need to come in, Tata can do that. He's a phenomenal recruiter. Tata Martino has the curriculum, the credibility, the networking, the contacts. I mean, he is a guy that understands the game, and there aren't many coaches that are as involved and knowledgeable on how to build a roster, including in MLS. He's been in the system. He knows. He talks about it. He absolutely would be a guy that, with Chris Henderson, who, as we all know, can not only go out there and make sure that he elaborates this roster in a way that the salary cap can be maximized. But if you need to go out there and get a younger player, if you want to go out there and draft an interesting player that could be a contributor for Atlanta, he can do that. So for me, it's a perfect match, and I'm just excited to see it, and excited to once again have Tata in this league. He is one of the most interesting guys. He is so respectful to media members. He is very, in my opinion and in my experience, accessible in so many ways, both English and Spanish. So I'm just excited to have him back. I think it's the right hire for Atlanta United.
All right. So just a programming update away from us. Noon on YouTube. It's going to be Mike, Connie, Jason Longshore. They're gonna have a special edition of Atlanta Soccer Tonight on YouTube at noon Eastern. So after we're done, everybody can catch their breath a little bit, and then they can catch up with Mike and Jason at noon on YouTube for Atlanta Soccer Tonight this afternoon. So that'll be what we're staring at with that. But yeah, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. It's a 2-year deal through the 27 season, and then it's a lot of work to be done in a very short period of time, because we're looking at 2 months away from the start of training camp and trying to figure out, okay, so who's here, who's not, where do I want to go, what's going on. So you've got 2 months to kind of sit in a room with all those dry erase boards and all of those ideas and hitting the phones and making sure that you've got unlimited talk and text and figuring out how you want this thing to look. You got 2 months before training camp, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is what you want out of Tata. I think that that's a reasonable contract for him. I am a little bit ticked off. I'm not gonna lie to you. On Sunday night, I literally had a conversation with at least two sources who had told me that there was nothing that was completely finalized, and then like a day later or something, I think Doug and then Tom ended up going off with the information. I think I pressed the button at the right time, or I just missed it by a slice. But no, yeah, this Tata Martino contract, I think goes well with what we will see. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes within the league. That Tata would be the perfect guy to prepare you for. We're talking about a calendar change. We're talking about, I've heard of all kinds of things about perhaps MLS going into either this apertura clausura type of calendar. I've heard that that there'll be a winter break and there'll be like a bridge tournament in between the seasons. I mean, there is so much that is going to change from MLS standards, that having a guy like Tata that gives you stability and um another thinking mind, right? For Atlanta, it is just the right way to go. And I do think that Atlanta United fans, they've had enough. They've had enough of this stagnant, uninspiring team that has all of these resources, all of this talent, and just hasn't been able to take that next step. And once again, I am a huge Garth and Chris believer, although we don't know where Garth is going to be necessarily in the near future. He's obviously taking a leave of absence that could be, I don't know.
You want Garth to focus on his health first and foremost.
Correct. Absolutely.
I'm at the front of the line sitting there saying I hate cancer, and I would get the explicit rating by explaining how much I do hate cancer. You want Garth to focus on that. It's in good hands with Skate Knopfsinger on the business side, Demetrius Estathiou on the financial side, and with Chris Henderson on the soccer side. So you want Garth to just focus on getting healthy, and then have continue to have Skate, Demetrios, and Chris cook in this environment right now.
Totally, exactly. So for me, having a guy like Tata adds yet another person that can be part of that soccer side with Chris Henderson. So I'm just ecstatic for you guys, the audience, that it stands me for half hour every Thursday. I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah, 2-year deal once again through 27 as of right now. That is what has been published by Atlanta United. So it is through the 2027 season. So now 26 and 27. That's the current framework that we're working under here. Obviously, more as we go, and we may be drifting in and out of the Tata topic here for the remainder of the show. I did want to go over the matchups with you. I want to start with the Seattle matchup, and you hit the pedal down, much like Hell is Real. We had Chris Doran on earlier this morning, and it was pedal down early for Seattle, getting out to a 3-0 lead. And I think it was just shocking on a couple of different fronts from those of us from the outside, that because we know what Minnesota brings to the table defensively, that Seattle was able to penetrate that defense at Lumen, put 3 on the board, and then we're sitting there going, man, we can't have nice things. All of a sudden it's 3-2. We're thinking, we're writing all of our leads and everything. The stories are down, and then you're just kind of like, oh, well, crap. And then it's 3-2, and you got to hang on. So you had almost 2 separate games, I think, in match day 2 with Minnesota United.
Yeah, there were just you could vacuum seal the first 45 minutes, because it is 45 minutes. It's literally exactly 45 minutes that Seattle played a perfect game. They just hit all the objectives. They started off on the front foot. They got an early goal. They had the right intensity, the fluidity of their offensive tactics was working to perfection. The Danny Musovski and Jordan Morris combination worked. to just look. I'm not going to give all the credit or too much of the credit to Danny Musovski, because I thought that he was okay. I thought he had a modest game. I think Jordan Morris did a lot of running, did a lot of assisting. I think that Obed Vargas had a phenomenal game, and all by design. You got to credit Brian Smetzer for a couple of things. One, the tactics, the way that he was able to say, look, Obed Vargas, I'm going to put you up a little bit higher. There were times that this formation looked like a 4-4-2 diamond. There were times that it looked like a 3-5-2 with an inverted triangle. There were times that it just changed. There was so much fluidity, and even within those systems, they're all the same concepts, right? And so the pressing was so good. They were able to really affect the game by having positive pressing, and then once the pressing was correct and there was a clearance from Minnesota, it was getting that guy to win that 50-50 ball and then having transition moments. All of the goals by Seattle had some sort of transition moment. So to me, they had a perfect game. But then you have those 8 minutes of just, you got to credit Minnesota a little bit or a lot. I feel like maybe my words were misconstrued because I had a lot of Minnesota fans come chirping at me. But when I say soft goals,
yeah,
I'm talking, and that's an indictment on the defense. Those were mistakes by the defense. Those were very preventable goals. And that's why when Brian Smetzer talks about soft goals, that's what he's referring to. And that's what I'm referring to. But you got to credit the opponent, because an opponent has to create that mistake, pick up that mistake, carry it over, and then finalize it in the final third and put that goal away. And I thought that Seattle was lucky that it didn't go 3-3 at halftime, because Rosales, right after those two goals, one, a mistake between Jordan Morris and Obed. Obed with just a pass that didn't have enough. Jordan didn't go out there and pick it up quickly enough. There's a moment where Lott obviously intercepts the ball. Trianti does a great job with the run. You put the ball away. And then the second one, even more preventable. My guy, one of the safest defenders, by far the best defender for the Sounders ever since he got here, Yemer Gomez-Andrade. Don't know what he was thinking. I think he got caught up in two minds. Had an easy pass, he doesn't. He holds it too long, gets dispossessed, and then that creates a goal. And then there's a third one that Rosales misses in front of goal. So Seattle was lucky there. But for me, it was impressive. And I, as the guy that has this reputation of just being the Brian Smetzer hater, I give all of the credit to Brian Smetzer for taking those two goals right before halftime and then having the composure to go into the locker room and get them squared away right mentally and finishing that second half in the most professional way, going back to what was working, being disciplined defensively, and then adding goals to make sure that you put that game away. So Seattle, in different pockets, I thought it was very good. But because I do credit Minnesota, I do think that Eric Ramsey, with those two goals, is going to go game 3 and say, look, if I bunker as deep as I did in Seattle, there's a chance that the same thing happens and they break through the walls, and maybe I need to be a little bit more aggressive as I was in those 8 minutes at the end of that game, where I'm playing a little bit higher, when I'm pressing them selectively in certain moments. So I do believe that in game 3, there is going to be a lot more risk taken by Eric Ramsey. And I know people might think, are you sure? Like he has exact same way of playing. Look, I get it, but I do feel like there is going to be a couple of personnel changes, and I think that there's going to be some wrinkles to his tactics.
Okay. All right. So let's go through the other 4 matchups. Charlotte and NYC. We're going to have Will Pelagic on the show, play-by-play voice on the radio side, 10:30 tomorrow to break this one down. But Dean Smith continues to want to sit there and say, we're the underdog, we're the underdog, we're the underdog. Yeah, well, you're the 4 seed in an Eastern Conference, but that's what he wants to continue to try and pound. NYC took care of things at the 68-106, and now you've got game 3. What do you think of this one?
I mean, you look like the underdog on the field, but that doesn't mean that you are the underdog, sir. But to me, Charlotte got lucky to push that game to penalty kicks. I thought that New York was the better team, specifically in the second half. I thought they had a lot of chances. Kalina had a huge game, even before the PKs, to keep his team afloat and give Charlotte a chance. I still think that Saha was okay. And I feel like he does more when he has a mic in front of him than when he does with the ball at his feet at times. And, you got to just level that up a little bit. But I do like New York City FC. I think that the way they need their offense to progress and the pockets that they find and the way they transition the ball is easier for them than it is for Charlotte. And because of that, I have New York City going through, pulling, I guess you call it the upset on the road, although they already did it in game one. I do think that New York City is the more effective team on the field, and it'll show in game three.
All right. Next one, we had Chris Doran on, like I said, in hour number one to break down Hella's Real Match Day 3. We talked about Match Day 2 a little bit. And Cincinnati and Columbus, this one is at TQL. No Yu Yakubo for Cincinnati in this one for the straight red dog on the takedown. I don't know if he necessarily got 2 points because he didn't have shoulders down or anything, but Yu Yakubo not available for Cincinnati on the weekend in the middle game. What sticks out in this one for you? Columbus, they put 4 on the floor, and it looked easy attacking the edges for Cincinnati. And my guess is they're just going to continue to try to do that against Alvis Powell, Echenike, and try and have them chasing its shadows for a full 90 minutes.
It'd be very easy to make Kubo your scapegoat and say, look, the red card changed the game and all these things. But the reality is that Cincinnati just didn't quite get off the bus. They didn't quite get off the flight that they were on. I mean, it was just a game where they didn't have the intensity. There was no clarity on the ball. And you cannot give a team like Columbus the space that you gave them and the confidence that you gave them in, and they made you pay. Look, I still have my doubts about Columbus, but you got to give them credit when credit is due. And I thought that they came into this game and they understood that it was going to take quick patterns. It was going to take more numbers into the box. It was going to take a guy like Arson to have a huge game, which he did. You were going to have to beat them at their own game in the midfield. And everything that they were able to do, I thought worked for Columbus. Diego Rossi is a guy that, once again, he might get some criticism for not being the guy that's going to be able to just take the load and maybe put the team on his back. But when the team is cooking, he is part of that roast, right? He is a guy that puts the ingredients and gives it that finesse. And I thought that he had a good game, but all in all, I thought that it was a good plan by Wilfred. And I think that it was a game where it got out of hand for Cincinnati. I do think that there was more about what Cincinnati gave Columbus than what Columbus necessarily did to get it. But at the end of the day, it's about results. It's about getting goals, and Columbus did it perfectly.
You look at that one, and then you go late night for the last one on the triple header Saturday. It is Messi and Friends, and it is Nashville, no Luis Suarez. We went over that piece of news in hour number one. So no Luis Suarez in this matchup for them, and Nashville heads in. Obviously, they're going to be an underdog in this one. 8-12 kick. I am intrigued at how this one is going to go. I know that everybody's sitting there and tilting the field and sitting there going that this is going to be match day 3. Messi's going to grab everybody by the scruff of the neck and basically just will them and yank them over the finish line in this series. What do you think?
Look, I've heard so many comments that maybe this is a good thing because, Luis Suarez won't be there and you have a guy that maybe presses a little bit more and moves around and does this and the other. Look, at the end of the day, Luis Suarez stuck in third gear these days and with a very slow pace, he affects the game. And he is a guy that connects, that moves, that understands certain things. I've said it 1,000 times. He's a phenomenal, very talented player, but a very incomplete human being.
I know,
and you saw that.
He's got a 10-cent head at times. Yeah, million dollar soccer player, 10-cent head. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and you saw that with that unnecessary kick to Nahar, and now he pays the price. So I do think that this is a big deal, as much as people don't want to make it seem that way. I think that there is a level of respect, and Luis Suarez demands a lot of attention when he is on the field.
Mhm.
And by not having that, I do feel like it's going to simplify what Nashville wants to do with the ball, wants to do without the ball. So to me, it's done. I think Nashville is going to go into this game. I think that they will take control of it early. I think they'll have the tempo of the game. And I think they're going to put Inter Miami against the ropes and win this game comfortable. I do believe that. And I know that I'm saying this with the Messi factor and with the fact that I understand that Rodrigo de Paul has been very meh. I think that's the best
I think he defers.
adjective.
I think he's deferring a lot with everyone around him, with Busquets, with Alba, with Messi. I think he's deferring instead of being the individual that we know he can be in this offense. I think he's deferring to sit there and it's like, tell you what, I'll help y'all out because this is y'all's last ride or what have you. I think he's holding back and isn't the real Rodrigo de Paul so far.
Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And because of that, maybe there is a little bit of a possibility of Messi walking into your room or in the locker room and being like, all right, man, no Suarez today. You got to step it up a bit. And maybe that changes things a little bit. But as much as I try to analyze this game, I just don't see how Inter Miami, without Luis Suarez up top, is going to be able to get the fluidity of that offense going. And we all know that defensively, they struggled. They struggled, maybe not in game one, but they struggled during the season. In decision day, they struggled in the second game. I just don't think that there's enough defensive-minded players without a guy like Bright in the midfield. And that just seems to be the way that Mascherano likes to play. So to me, Nashville is just the better team, the better cohesive collective unit, and it'll show, in my opinion, in game 3.
All right. So then before we get to Portland and Seattle, Portland and San Diego, I want to ask this to you. And it has to do with the retroactive punishment on Luis Suarez. Traditionally, this was away from the ball, no call, no nothing. Nothing called on the field. And so nothing from VAR. Hey, stop, do whatever. Go back and, give me a foul coming back. Yes, you're going to need to be hydrated for this one. So let me ask you this. Nothing called on the field at the time. VAR doesn't go down on the field for any kind of a review. So it happened away from the ball. That's basically the best way it can be phrased with Suarez and Nahar. Then you have Disco come in from behind after the game is over and no foul was called to say it's a foul, it was egregious, you're suspended, we're going to Disco Section 3, which I've still got to find. They've gone back in and re-refereed something. They've come in after a result is finished. Like the door is closed. Fridge is closed. You've made your decision. Here's what you're having for lunch. You're going to make your sandwich. Sandwich is made, door is closed. What Disco has done, if I'm interpreting this correctly, they've tried to make their sandwich, and then they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should add a couple more slabs of meat or something. Maybe I should add something else to this. It's not supposed to be this healthy a sandwich. I'm going to go in, get some luncheon meat, and I want to, make a Dagwood and do that. They've come in from behind for something that wasn't called in the game. And last time I checked, it's like if it wasn't reviewed, it wasn't called, it's supposed to be as is. This is it. Yeah, we can look back and sit there and say in retrospect, yeah, it should have been called, but it wasn't. Now you've got Disco coming in behind and sitting there saying, even though the sandwich is made, the box is closed, fridge is closed, hey, you know what? We're not done making lunch yet. We're going to come back in and we're going to fix this sandwich and make it healthier. That's kind of what I'm staring at here. And if I'm interpreting this correctly, that they've come in and re-refereed, that's a dangerous thing to stare at going forward. It's selective enforcement. Yeah.
No, absolutely, and I get what you're going with it, but I don't think it's unprecedented when it comes to other things that maybe are off the field that get investigated later, and that's the way that I would, in some way, try to compare it to.
Mhm.
It is some dangerous grounds, but I do feel like in this particular situation with this particular individual, it made that a little bit easier because he's just such a repeat offender. But at the end of the day, I believe is valid, and especially when it is so clear and obvious of what you were trying to do, um, and that aggression, at times just gets unseen.
Yeah.
And this is why Disco ends up at times adding games or depending on,
But
on on what they
right,
see.
right, and that was because a foul was called.
Sure. Yep. No, I totally get it. I absolutely get it. And the funny part was that later, Inter Miami tried to appeal that, which
Yeah.
was
I mean,
just as weird because it's
well, I
if
mean,
it if
yeah,
you re-refereed
right,
Disco, you're the one that decided this. You put it
right.
out.
Yeah, and you're going by the rules you're going by the rules as they're supposed to be implemented. So I'm looking at it strictly from that way. I'm not denying that Luis Suarez, and we talked about Luis
Yeah,
Suarez.
yeah,
I'm not denying that the contact on Nahar was nasty. I'm not denying that. I mean, literally, it was a mule kick to Andy Nahar. He's buzzing past him. Oh, mule kick, bang. I'm not denying what Suarez did. I'm just sitting here and saying within the framework of calling fouls, it wasn't called. And
yeah.
so VAR didn't sit there and go, well, you need to go back and call something. In the framework of the game, it wasn't called. So when the game is over, if nothing is called, I think that box is closed and you've got to file everything away. And then Disco comes in and says, no, no, no. I mean, it's like I said, it's to me, it's just something that we got to keep an eye on where they're coming back in. And I'm using Inter Miami's words here. I'm using Messi and Friends' word about re-refereeing something when it wasn't called. Now they're calling it a foul, and then you're giving a suspension. These kinds of things. Like I said, that's just and I know Derek is mentioning in the Twitch pitch about it being Disco's job. Yes, I'm agreeing that is part of Disco's writ, but at the same time, they're going back in and fixing something. They're going back in thinking something needs to be fixed when the game itself is done, hermetically sealed envelope, game's done, stats done, everything. Nothing was called. I'm just saying that going back in after nothing was called and the game is over, you got to keep an eye on that kind of stuff because I think you are re-refereeing a result regardless of what we think about the call in particular. I'm just saying that it's something we got to keep an eye on.
No, and I totally agree. If anything, and I do agree with the comment because that's kind of the way I feel is that that's Disco's job is kind of
Mm-hmm.
being that third party that overlooks at your work and says, "Look, man, you missed. You didn't cross these T's, you didn't dot these I's. You got to get that fixed."
You got to come up with a better adjective and a better sentence. Yeah.
But to your point, this is an indictment on just poor refereeing that MLS has sometimes, and the lack of consistency and the lack of VAR at times. So it's mainly that, and by Disco going back and re-refereeing, I've always said that if that's the case, and you feel like that was something missed by the referees, there should be some sort of
Yeah.
communication or reprimand to that group of
Right.
referees for missing something that was clear as day.
Yeah.
Did it not? How did you miss that? Because I
Mm.
mean, we saw it in the broadcast. What were those guys doing at the time? Did they go get that sandwich you were describing? I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
but that is to me the biggest conclusion of this whole thing is
Yeah.
that the refereeing needs work in MLS.
Yeah.
And by Disco doing that, they're clearly adding that, highlighting that, and saying, look, they missed this. We got to fix it because it was so clear and obvious. And I think that's what I would take out of it.
Yeah, and you got to see if that crew, ends up just being stuck doing VARs and AVARs going forward. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I've delayed the Portland San Diego discussion to right now. So Portland and San Diego, what do you think?
I want to credit Neville for taking this to 3 games, and I think that he did it in the only way he knew how, was just being direct, muttering the water, making sure that you disrupted San Diego's flow. It was 13 fouls by the first half. They were able to really interrupt what San Diego likes to do, but I just don't feel like they have enough bullets in that chamber, and I think that it's going to be too much for Portland when Chucky Lozano, who made a huge difference when he came onto the game, now being a starter, now the obviously being at home, and I know that San Diego hasn't been a huge home game or a home team that they've dropped a lot of points at home, but I do think that in this particular instance, Portland's going to be put into what San Diego wants to do on the attack. And I feel like they're going to expose this Timbers team for what it is, which is a very inconsistent team that has inconsistent players on offense and defense, because the Costa has been MIA for the majority of the playoffs and the end of this season. And Kelsey is just as bad, where you don't know if he is going to show up, is not going to show up. Maybe the goalkeeping component for San Diego, it is something to look at. Obviously, CJ Dos Santos is a guy that had been so good in so many ways, not just goalkeeping wise, but what he does in distribution for a team that likes to play with the ball. But I just think that San Diego has too many weapons. They're going to put this away. They'll put it away 90, and they'll move on. And whoever wins out of Minnesota and Seattle will get the distinct pleasure of playing San Diego in San Diego.
No doubt about it. As always, my friend, thank you for crashing on a break. What evolved into a breaking news Thursday. What's the latest at oil change, auto repair, and tires and transmission distribution up there at Providence and Swedish?
Yeah, well, it's been a great week at the training facility. First of all, Christian Roldan getting a very deserved not nomination, but being named to the best 11 in MLS. It is a great reward to a player that has put in the work, that statistically it might not seem like it because he's had better seasons when he played winger. What comes to mind is 2022 when he led CCL in assists, and he was just a different player. But this year, how influential he's been for this Sounders team in the pivot position, being more of a real six, having that defensive responsibility, is the reason why Seattle has gotten as far as they gotten. So to me, he is absolutely the best number 6 in MLS right now. So deserve credit to him. Brian talked about it. I thought it was great. In the injury department, Alex Roldan seems to be fine. He came off with a little bit of a growing tightness, seems to be completely okay and will be available for game 3. Mainly, the attitude is there for the Sounders. They know and understand that they won this game because of the offensive fluidity of it, what they were able to do with crashing the box, the tempo that they had in this game. So throughout the week of training, you've seen that out of this squad, and they're ready to go, man. I really do think that they understand that they now have found a grit, a hole in the wall that it is the Minnesota defense. So it's been an interesting week of training for the Seattle Sounders. And I think that they're going to go to game 3 and really take over, man. So if you want to hear some of the interviews, if you want to hear kind of what we have in mind, go ahead and check out Pulso Sports. Everything that we got this week is on there. Of course, tomorrow we'll do what we learned this week with Jeremiah O'Shan, where we're going to break down the starting 11, what this game will look like in Minnesota, what are the chances of the Sounders winning this game. And then on Monday, we'll have the newspaper under our armpit, and we'll be able to break down what happened with Ari Lillenwall on Loving Scorch's kickoff. I will say one last thing, if you would allow me there, John. I did want to give my 2 cents on the news that came across of Dos Santos being the front runner for the LAFC job. I've heard so many bad takes and misinformed opinions on Dos Santos. I've had the privilege to watch him prepare for a preseason down here with Vancouver. He's a guy that is one of the brightest minds when it comes to just tactics and X's and O's. He's phenomenal with player development. I've talked to so many players that were part of that Vancouver team in his time here, and it was a clear idea that there wasn't many coaches that they've worked with that can elaborate what they wanted executed on the team in the way that Dos Santos did. He's been an assistant with Steve Cherundolo in an extremely successful LAFC. He's won leagues, the league. He's won the Shield. He's won U.S. Open Cup. He's been to like 3 finals, including the CONCACAF Champions Cup final and Leagues Cup. I mean, he's just been such a important piece of this assistant head coach for Cherundolo. So to me, I love the thought process of having him take over for LAFC, because he seems to be a guy that has learned a whole lot, has grown a whole lot, and he just has a great eye for what he wants in a team. So, like it or not, call it maybe not as flamboyant or exciting as maybe LAFC wants it, but I do think that if he gets his opportunity, he's going to be the right guy for the job. He's going to continue doing what Cherundolo has done right, adding some components to that game, and I just love that he could potentially be the head coach of LAFC.
Yep, and what we have been discussing with Marc Dos Santos basically is he's behind the wheel of that RTD bus that we see, going through Los Angeles, and it's like, look, man, just hang on to the steering wheel. Make sure you hit all the stops. Make sure you pick up all the passengers. Make sure you drop them off where they're supposed to be dropped off. Somebody pulls the emergency ripcord. You stop the bus, and they want to get off, they get off. Just make sure that you don't wreck the bus and turn it into like Keanu Reeves in Speed. You're sitting there, like it gets below 55, you're in trouble. Just sit there, hang on to the bus, hit all the stops, pick up all your people, make sure you get all the fares. Everything should be fine. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, the younger guys like Nathan Ordaz, like La Perla Martinez, those are guys that I guarantee you are going to be happy to have a guy that has developed and worked with them so closely to be the head coach. And if that is the future of your franchise, Buanga is going to Buanga, and Sung is going to Sung. Worry about the other components around them to just uplift them to that level, and I guarantee you that it's going to be a good team. And I think that Marc Dos Santos can do that. He'll let the star shine bright, but he'll give him that collaborate work and role-playing team behind them to allow them to do what they do.
All right, my friend, I know we kept you long, and I know that you're probably heading to your 3rd cup of coffee, but on breaking news days like this where we've got a lot of ground to cover, there it is. He's got the coffee going. Yeah, see, he's got the Palouse going. He's got the Palouse smoke.
Oh yeah. It says my kid and my money go to Washington State, and I miss them both.
That's what it says. And so hey, they're getting ready for the Tupac, and they're getting ready for the new Pac-12 or 10 or however the heck many schools are going to be attached to it. We'll catch up with you again next week as the playoffs continue to dwindle their way down. And thanks for all the insight this morning on all the breaking news and everything, because we were flying this morning, brother. And we turned the table, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we've been at this for like 40 minutes. So,
yeah, we are getting a little bit farther out, man. But I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for the time, and I'll see you next week.